Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks exciting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. Oh, and just one more thing before we go. Please consider like, commenting, and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. But now with all that out of the way, let's carry on with the video. Okay, so to start off with, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using some skeleton bone here. And the skeleton bone we're going to be using for her flesh to give it that nice, really pale, yellowish, greenish colour for an ogre skin that I like to do, also following the Dungeons and Dragons sort of style of painting up ogres. But again, I've also just primed everything in a white primer just to keep everything nice and simple. And I've also added a little bit of ground texture to the base, which is just some stones from my driveway. So nice, easy setup there. And all we're going to do is just paint everywhere over the skin. Now I am going to be doing this in at least 2 thin coats so I can get a good coverage so you don't see any of that streaking. Then once we have all that skin painted up, what I'm going to be doing here is coming in with some Goblin Green. As this female ogre here also has a little goblin sort of psychic or prisoner right next to her, so we want to make sure we get that too, get a nice good even coverage on there. It's going to be a little bit harder because it's sort of sculpted into the side of the ogre here, so just being very aware of where it is and picking out that bit of detail. Now with our little goblin picked out, what we're going to do is come in with some army green. And for the army green, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be placing it on our female ogre's shirt she has on here, this like tattered sort of style bra shirt. We want to make sure we get that all in the nice coverage of this army green here. Being aware too that there are little holes and rips and tears of the cloth all over the miniature, so be aware of that as well while you're painting up her top. Then once we have her top painted up, what we're going to be doing is coming in with some cavalry brown here. And the cavalry brown we're going to be using to be painting in her skirt that she's wearing. So this nice deep reddish brown is going to help complement all these greens we've got on here and really help pop that out. So just giving a good overall coverage. Now there is a lot of items on her belt and across her chest that she's got that are dangling over the skirt, so just be very careful to avoid that as much as you can, but we don't have to worry about that too much since we're in the base coating stage at the moment. But to be a little bit neater is just a little bit of good practice. Then once we have her skirt painted up, we're going to come in now with some ivory. Now the ivory we're going to be using to be painting up our ogre's eyes, and of course this is a really delicate process that takes a bit of steadiness, so don't be afraid if you don't get it on the first try. I generally don't. But we just want to get it in there, and as well as that, we also want to be using it on her little teeth that she has poking out as well, just to give those a nice little highlight, stand them out. As well as that, we also want to be doing the eyes and the teeth on our little goblin here that we have on our back as well. So just being very careful in there, get a nice fine sharp tip brush like I have so you can really pick out that detail because a lot of the sculpting has lost a lot of that detail, so we're going to have to be very careful in picking it out to make it look semi-realistic. And now that we have the eyes and the teeth picked out, it's time to come in with some black, and we want to be doing the pupils on the eyes. Now this is always a tricky procedure for me, and I'm still trying to get my brush skills up enough that I can do eyes properly, so don't be afraid if it takes a couple of tries to get this. Now another way to do this other than using a sharp tip brush, what I'm using here is you can use the head of a needle with just a little spot of black on it and dot them in, or even a very, very fine tip black pen can also do this as well. But I want to get a little bit more practice with my brush skills here, so I want to really see if I can get the hang of doing eyes on miniatures with a brush. Okay, now with those eyes dotted in, what we're going to be doing is going to come in now with some charred brown. And for the charred brown, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using it for some of the leather parts she has on her. So this nice big leather strap she has on her belt here, we want to make sure we give that a nice good coverage. She also has some straps of leather on her legs, and as well as that on her arms as well. So we want to make sure we get in all those places with the nice dark leather on there as well. Okay, so with all the dark leather parts picked out, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with some mahogany brown. Mahogany brown we're going to be using for her nice staff, so I'm going to make it a nice mahogany wood staff that she's going to be having on her. So we just want to give that a nice, good overall coverage. Just being aware not to try paint too much over her hand, and as well as there's some little straps and bits of string in that on there as well. We want to avoid those bits too. Now we have the wood of her staff picked out. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some hemp rope. And hemp rope I'm going to be using for, of course, this is what it says on the bottle, just to paint up some rope. So, of course, we've got this nice, lovely bit of rope that the female ogre is grasping onto that little, poor little goblin on there. As well as that too, there's also some bits of string and rope holding up the centered gem of her staff as well. So we want to make sure we get into those. And as well as that, there's also some very, very tiny bits of string and rope holding up all these little bits of detail on her belt. So don't forget to do those as well while you're doing that. So once we have all that done, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with some leather brown. And what we're going to be doing is just picking out some more areas of leather with it. So I've left this little purpose bit on the strap on her arm that has her sort of gauntlet on there, so we want to be painting in that little bit of strat, so we've got a bit of color difference in there, and just little bits of detail all over the miniature like that. We think you could add in a little bit more color with a different brown is where you want to be doing that sort of thing. Okay, so now we have that picked out. We're going to come in now with some khaki for just one very specific spot on the miniature, and she has a little bit of a pouch or a coin purse on her, so we're going to be using the khaki to just be painting that up. Nice and simple. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to come in with some ivory. And what we're going to be doing with this ivory is we're going to be picking out all the bone details. So she has this little piece of bone on here that has sort of a rune carved in it. As well as that, she also has all the skulls we want to be painting with the ivory color as well. There's some all over her back. So you just want to be picking out all those sorts of things that look like they would be bone just with this ivory color. Okay, now we have all that ivory stuff picked out. We're going to come in now with some gunmetal, and there's only one little bit of metal on the miniature here, which is just this little blade that she has on her, so we just want to be covering that up in the nice gunmetal here to make it nice and simple. Then once we have that blade picked out, we're going to come in now with some castle grey, and for the castle grey what we're going to be doing is we're going to be painting up the base that she ordinarily comes on. She's standing on this nice sculpted rock, so we want to make sure we get that on there as well, and we want to start off with a nice dark color so we can highlight it up as we go along. So castle grey is going to be the best color to start off with for this. Now that we have that nice big rock painted up, I'm going to come in now with some basalt grey, and what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm just going to be painting up our female ogre's hair with this. I want to have some sort of black greying hair since she's an old wise sort of shaman of the ogre people. So I think the basalt grey is going to be a good in-between for this. Then once we have her hair all painted up, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with some dark sea grey. And the dark sea grey, all we're going to be doing is we're just going to be placing it on one little spot on the miniature, which is this nice little stone rune she has here tied to her belt. So we want to make sure we get that a good coverage. And then once we have that done, all we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding that dark sea grey to the rock that she is standing on as well. So all we need to do for that is to just grab ourselves a quick dry brush, nice small one preferably, so we don't get anywhere else on the miniature, and we just want to be giving some nice dry brushes along there so we can really catch the edges that are sculpted into that nice rock she's standing on. And then once we have that rock picked out, what we're going to do is we're going to come in with some ash grey, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Just come in with our dry brush and just make some nice quick short passes over the rock as well to give it a little bit more definition to it and add some variation of colour to that rock. Then with that ash grey done, we're going to come in now with some ivory, and we're going to be doing the exact same thing again to give it its final highlight, which is this nice ivory colour, which is going to really help define those edges. So mainly focusing on the very edges and all those raised parts, specifically not over the whole bit of the rock in this dry brushing step. Okay, now with our rock complete, what we're going to be doing is we're going to come in now with some dirt spatter. And for the dirt spatter, all I'm going to be doing is painting up the bits of ground and stones and dirt that I've just gathered up from my driveway. So this is a completely optional step, whether you have this on the base of the miniature or not. You may just have the rock. So you can completely miss a step, but if you have a little bit of ground covering, I'm just using some dirt spatter. to do that. Then now with that bit of ground texture painted up, we're going to come in now with some Hydra Turquoise. And this here we're going to be using for our nice bit of magical sort of stones that she's using. At least that's what I'm going with anyway. She's found these magical stones, and that's what the shaman uses for her magical powers. So want to use it nicely here on her little bit of necklace, and as well as that I'm going to be of course using it for the nice carved stone she has in her staff as well, to show that there's a magical connection between these things. Then once we have them picked out, what we're going to do now is come in with some black, and what we're going to be doing with the black is we're just going to come out and just pick out that little bit of rope string that's holding up her necklace, just to really define that in there. I'm going with the black there, so it's a little bit more eye-catching than if we were to use the hemp rope or the brown there. So once that's done, you have now completed all the base coat. So now we're going to move on to some washes. So starting off with some flesh wash here, all we're going to be doing is covering all of the flesh of our ogre to give it that little bit more lively and reddish tone into her skin. Now we're just using it on the ogre herself. We're not doing it on the goblin or anywhere else at this stage, not even the skulls. We just want to be using it on her skin. Now once that's all completely dry, we're going to come in now with some green tone. And the green tone we're going to be using for the little goblin that she has tied up, and she's pretty much holding hostage by the look of the face I've painted on her. I'm not sure if that's the case, but that's what I'm going with anyway. So we want to just make sure we get a nice good coverage of green tone all over the little goblin there. And now with our goblin all completely finished, what we're going to do is come in now with some agrax earthshade. Now this agrax earthshade we're going to be using over a lot of the miniature. So pretty much we're going to be using it over the entirety of the miniature, except for anywhere we have metallics and anywhere we have any bones. So we want to be avoiding the skulls and the little bits of bone detail that she has on her as well. But other than that, we want to be getting her clothes, her dress, her bits of leather armor that she has on her, just really getting it over everywhere else that we can, and we're giving it a nice good layer. But we do want to avoid pooling, so be careful when it starts pulling up. Just come in with a empty brush just underneath of it, just to suck that little bit of wash on the miniature up. Then once our brown wash is completely dry, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with some nuln oil. And with the nuln oil, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be, of course, placing it onto the metallics, because I love the effect that it gives off when it's on metallics. As well as that, I'm also going to be using the nuln oil for any of our bone details as well, because I want them to be nice, dried up, and well-preserved bones, because you're sort of showing them off. That's why I didn't want to do any of the flesh wash over them or a brown wash. I want them to make them look like she really takes care of them and has a bit of pride in these things, and then they look a little bit cleaner than we were to use the flesh wash on there. Okay, now with all that complete, we're going to come in with some highlights now. So skeleton bone, which is the color that we use for our skin here, we're going to be using it to do a highlight on there as well, and we're going to be just doing the sort of most raised edges, and we're being careful to avoid any of the deep recesses in our miniature here, so we can get the wash in those nice shadows, and it's going to really help bring a new life to the miniature. Now with that skin all highlighted, what we're going to be doing now is coming back in with some cavalry brown, and we're just going to be doing it, of course, to the areas where the most raised parts are, which in this miniature is nice and easy to pick out. We have some very high highlight areas, so we just want to be getting those nice raised edges on the miniature to really help emphasize that the light is hitting on those spots. And again, we're going to be doing the exact same thing with army green here. And of course, the army green is for her top. So we want to be getting those nice high points, really having them stick out so we can sort of see where the sun is bouncing off and all these nice folds and creases on the miniature. So again, it's being very, very careful not to get anywhere in those recesses so we can really take full effect of our highlighting here. And then once we have her top completed, we're going to come in now with some Goblin Green, and we want to be doing it for our little goblin fellow that she's holding hostage. We just want to grab just the very high points that we've got sculpted in, so the tops of the muscles, the little bit of the head, those little places like that, so it can really look like the sun's bouncing off him. And there's one last bit we really want to focus on, and that's we want to grab our Hydra Turquoise and really hit those nice high points of our magical stones that she has on her here. And with the wash we've applied over top and just highlighting it up is going to really help give it that little bit more magical look. And with all that done, we have now finished painting up our Ogre Matriarch from Reaper Miniatures. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and hopefully this is giving you some cool ideas whether you want to follow along with me or you just enjoy watching me paint up some cool miniatures. But with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.